Growing up, my sister was the princess. I was just the backup plan. That's how my mom used to joke, but it never felt like a joke to me. My sister, Samantha, got everything. And when I say everything, I mean it. Private schools, new cars on her birthdays, designer bags before she could even spell designer, and vacations to Italy, France, you name it.
Me?
I got a pat on the back and a reminder that money doesn't grow on trees. Funny thing is, it always seemed to grow just fine when it came to her. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. I still remember being 16 and asking if I could join her on the school trip to Paris. Mom said, "Sweetheart, that's too expensive. Maybe next year." But 2 weeks later, she posted pictures of Samantha holding a croissant in front of the Eiffel Tower with the caption, "Our little girl, chasing dreams." It wasn't even anger I felt back then. It was numbness. The kind that creeps into you until you stop expecting anything. I worked part-time after school at a cafe. Saved every dollar. Got into a public college. No fancy dorms, no shiny cars. Just me, a used laptop, and instant noodles.
Samantha?
She got a fully paid Ivy League education because she deserves the best, Dad had said. The difference between us was so obvious that even family friends whispered about it. But I learned something valuable. How to be independent. How to stand on my own. Fast forward to Thanksgiving, years later. Everyone was coming home. Samantha, my golden sister, had just announced her engagement to some hedge fund guy named Ethan. My parents couldn't stop glowing.
Me?
I was coming home too, only this time, I had a secret. A $26 million secret. No one in that room knew I had built a successful AI startup, sold it, and quietly invested in real estate afterward. I had gone from the forgotten daughter to someone the world suddenly wanted to meet. But I kept it quiet, because I wanted peace, not attention. But that peace, well, it didn't survive Thanksgiving dinner. As soon as Samantha saw me, she smirked. "Wow, Grace, still shopping at thrift stores?" I smiled. "Yeah, it's good for the planet." She laughed, rolling her eyes. Always the humble one. I could feel Mom's eyes darting between us, as if silently reminding me not to ruin the holiday. But honestly, I wasn't planning to. I had learned long ago that silence can be louder than any insult. Dinner went smoothly until Uncle Richard, who's never known the meaning of subtlety, brought it up. "So, Grace, your name's been popping up on some Forbes article. Something about a young entrepreneur who cashed out big." The room froze. Samantha's fork clinked against her plate. Mom's smile stiffened. Dad frowned like he'd heard a bad word. I laughed nervously.
Oh, that.
"Yeah, it's true." "You're rich?" Samantha asked, her voice sharp. "Something like that," I said. "How much?" she demanded. "About 26 million. It was like I dropped a grenade in the middle of the dinner table. Samantha's face turned red, then pale. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking," I said softly. Then she laughed, that fake, hysterical laugh she used when things didn't go her way. "Oh, come on, you expect us to believe you have that kind of money? Grace, you couldn't even afford a car." "Yeah," I said. "I still take Uber sometimes. Keeps me grounded." Uncle Richard chuckled. "I'll drink to that." But Dad's jaw tightened. "Grace, that's impressive. Why didn't you tell us?" Before I could answer, Samantha slammed her hand on the table. "Because she's lying," she shouted. "She's jealous I have everything she doesn't." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the turkey looked uncomfortable sitting there. That's when Mom whispered, "Grace, is it really true?" I nodded.
Yeah, Mom.
"It's true." I didn't want to make a big deal of it. But the big deal was already made. Samantha stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "You're lying. You're just trying to steal attention because for once, it's my night." She stormed off, heels clacking, mascara smudging, pride shattering. And I sat there, still smiling politely, as if the entire table hadn't just watched my sister's perfect world crumble. Because deep down I knew, this wasn't revenge yet. This was just the beginning. After Thanksgiving night, my phone blew up. Texts from cousins, aunts, Even distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly wanted to catch up. But the most shocking text came from Mom. "We need to talk. Tonight. Your father and I are confused." That confused part was classic Mom. She used it when she was angry but didn't want to admit it. When I arrived at my parents' house later that evening, the vibe was tense. Dad was sitting in his recliner, arms crossed. Mom was pacing. Samantha sat on the couch, arms folded, eyes red and puffy. "Grace," Dad started. "Is this some kind of prank? Because if it is, it's not funny." I smiled calmly.
No, Dad.
"It's not a prank." He exhaled hard, rubbing his forehead. 26 million?
You? How?
Hard work, I said simply. Mom frowned. "You didn't even go to a good college. You weren't ambitious like your sister." That stung, but I stayed composed. "Maybe not in your eyes. But I learned to work with what I had. I started a tech startup right after college. It took off faster than I expected." Samantha snorted. "You? A tech founder? You barely knew how to use Excel." I met her glare. "Yeah, I learned. People do that, you know." Dad sighed. "You should have told us. We're your family." I smiled bitterly. "Oh, I tried telling you things before, remember? About my art, my grades, my ideas? You always said I should focus on finding a stable job, maybe a secretary role." No one said a word. Mom looked uncomfortable. "Grace, you have to understand. Samantha had potential. We invested in her future." "Right," I said. "And you assumed I didn't." The silence that followed was heavier than anything. Samantha broke it with a hiss. "You think money makes you better than me? You'll never have what I have." I almost laughed. "What's that?" "Their approval." Her eyes filled with tears, but I could see the jealousy behind them. Sharp, ugly, burning. That was the last time I visited for months. While my family continued their drama, I focused on my work and my peace. The truth is, my company had been acquired by a Silicon Valley giant. I'd walked away with $18 million cash, then invested most of it into commercial real estate in Florida and Texas. By the time I was 29, those investments had grown to $26 million total net worth. I didn't live extravagantly. I still rented a small apartment, drove a modest Tesla, and kept my name out of headlines. I liked it that way.
Quiet.
Controlled.
Free.
But peace doesn't last long when jealousy is involved. One evening, I got a call from my friend Megan, who still lived in my hometown. "Hey, Grace," she said hesitantly. "This might sound weird, but did you know your sister's been talking about you?" I sighed. "That's nothing new." "No, I mean really talking. She told people you lied about your money, said you photoshopped that Forbes article and that you're obsessed with her fiancé." I froze. "Wait, what?" Megan continued.
Yeah.
"She told the entire brunch group that you're jealous because Ethan used to have a crush on you in high school." That one hit deep, not because it was true, it wasn't, but because it showed how far Samantha was willing to go to protect her pride. The thing about people like my sister? They can't handle losing the spotlight. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't the center of attention anymore. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Dad. His tone was stern, cold. "Grace, whatever lies you've been spreading about Samantha need to stop." I blinked. "Lies? What are you talking about?" "She says you've been spreading rumors about her engagement." I laughed in disbelief. "Dad, I haven't spoken to anyone." "Well, she's upset. You're ruining things for her." The irony almost made me choke. All my life, I was the disappointment. Now, somehow, I was also the villain just because I'd succeeded. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony overlooking the city lights, thinking. I'd stayed silent for years. I'd forgiven every insult, every slight. But if Samantha wanted to turn my success into her circus, then maybe it was time she saw just how much I'd grown. Not with words, not with shouting, but with something far more powerful, exposure, the truth. And when the truth finally came out, it would burn her perfect world to ashes. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, you know the kind of sting that doesn't fade. It burns quietly, like a slow ember, until it explodes when you least expect it. For me, that explosion started when I got an email from my bank one afternoon. Your account access has been temporarily frozen due to suspicious login attempts. At first, I thought it was phishing. But after calling the bank, the truth chilled me. Someone had tried accessing my account using my personal details, my date of birth, my social security number, even an old address. And guess what? The IP address traced back to my parents' hometown. My chest went cold. I didn't want to believe it, but my gut already knew.
Samantha.
The same sister who used to steal my clothes, my notebooks, my spotlight, had now tried to steal my money. The bank secured everything before any damage was done, but that wasn't the real wound. The real wound was knowing how far she'd fallen. So, I drove down to my parents' house that weekend, unannounced. Mom opened the door, surprised. Grace. What a surprise. Yeah, I said with a tight smile. We need to talk. Dad looked up from the living room. Is everything okay? Before I could answer, Samantha walked in wearing a silk robe and sipping coffee, like she owned the place. Oh look, the tech queen decided to visit the peasants, she sneered. Funny, I said. I came to ask why someone from this address tried to hack into my bank account. Her smirk faded instantly. What? You heard me, I said, my voice calm but sharp. Someone used my SSN and old address. I traced the IP. It came from here. Dad frowned. That's absurd. But Samantha's eyes darted, quick, panicked. That's ridiculous. Why would I? I cut her off. Because you've done worse for less. Mom gasped. Grace, don't accuse your sister of something like that. I pulled out my phone, showing the email and the IP log. I don't need to accuse. I have proof. For a second, silence. Then Samantha snapped. You think you're better than me because you got lucky? You flaunt your stupid money, act like you're superior, and now you're accusing me? You've always been jealous of me. That made me laugh. Genuinely laugh. Jealous? Of you? Samantha, you had every advantage growing up. You got everything handed to you. And now you're trying to steal what I earned. Tears filled her eyes. But it wasn't sadness. It was rage. I just wanted to prove I could have it too, she said, voice trembling. You don't deserve it. You were always the plain one. The boring one. I worked hard for attention, and you just got lucky. That's when Dad stood up, slamming his hand on the table. That's enough. Samantha, tell me this isn't true. But she didn't answer. And that silence, that one tiny moment of guilt, told everyone what they needed to know. Mom covered her mouth. Dad turned away. And me? I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just closure. I'm done, I said finally. You can keep the family, the fake sympathy, all of it. I don't need any of it anymore. Then I walked out. Over the next few weeks, the fallout spread like wildfire. Word got around. People whispered about how Samantha had tried to hack her own sister's account. Her fiancé, Ethan, called me one evening. Grace, I don't know what to say, he stammered. She told me you were lying, but I saw the emails. She told you? I asked. She didn't have to. I found her laptop. I didn't respond. Then he said something that hit harder than anything. You don't deserve this, Grace. You deserve better family. When I hung up, I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. I'd spent my whole life shrinking myself to make others comfortable.
Now?
I was done being small. So, I did something Samantha never expected. I invited the entire family, aunts, uncles, cousins, to a formal dinner at my newest property, a lakefront mansion in Michigan. The same one that had just made it to an online magazine feature for top 10 modern estates under 30M. The same house Samantha had secretly been eyeing with her fiancé. And when they walked in that night, let's just say, the tables were finally about to turn. The night of the dinner was crisp and clear, the kind of evening that felt calm before a storm. My mansion overlooked the lake, its glass walls glowing in warm amber light. A dozen cars lined the driveway, sleek, polished, expensive, because I wanted everyone to see what I'd built. And this time, I wasn't going to hide it. I hired a private chef, set the table with white roses and crystal glasses, and even rented a string quartet. Every detail screamed success. When my parents arrived, Mom looked around with a forced smile. "Grace, this is something." Dad nodded stiffly. "Quite the place." Then Samantha and Ethan walked in. She wore a gold dress, makeup heavy, smile tighter than her curls. "Wow," she said, her voice dripping sarcasm. "So this is where you spend your humble millions." I smiled politely. "Nice to see you too, Sam." For the next half hour, people mingled, admired the house, and whispered behind champagne glasses. Samantha pretended not to notice, but I saw the envy flickering in her eyes like wildfire. Then dinner began. The chef presented a 5-course meal, and conversation flowed. Awkward, polite, a little fake. Uncle Richard, of course, couldn't resist stirring the pot. "So, Grace, tell us, how does it feel being the richest person at this table?" The room chuckled nervously. Samantha's smile froze. I sipped my wine. "It feels freeing, especially after years of being told I'd never be good enough." Mom's eyes dropped to her plate. Dad cleared his throat. Then, before I could continue, Samantha slammed her napkin on the table. "Are we seriously doing this?" she snapped. "Another night about Grace's money? Congratulations, you won capitalism." The room fell silent. Ethan tried to calm her, but she waved him off. "No, I'm serious. Everyone's acting like she's some kind of saint. She's just lucky." I leaned back, calm as ever. "Lucky? Maybe. But luck doesn't write code, negotiate contracts, or invest wisely." Her face turned red. "Oh, please. You probably just slept your way into it." Gasps filled the table. My mom looked horrified. Dad whispered, "Samantha." But I didn't flinch. I smiled. "Interesting you'd say that, considering your fiancé knows the truth." Ethan froze. "Grace." I raised my hand. "Don't worry. I'm not going to expose anything private. But maybe Samantha should stop lying about me before her own secrets come out." Samantha's voice cracked. "What secrets?" I tapped my phone and played an audio recording. One Ethan had accidentally sent me during a business call the week before. In the recording, Samantha could be heard saying, "If I can't be rich like her, I'll take what's hers. No one will know." The entire table went still. Dad stared at her in shock. Mom's hand trembled on her wine glass. And Samantha, my perfect, untouchable sister, went pale as snow. "Where did you get that?" she stammered. "From Ethan," I said quietly. "He thought I should know." Her face twisted, and she turned on him. "You told her?" Ethan sighed, defeated. "Sam, you were trying to hack her account. What was I supposed to do?" It was chaos after that. Samantha screamed, cried, and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Everyone sat frozen, unsure what to say. Finally, Dad stood. "Grace, I don't know what to say." I smiled faintly. "You don't have to say anything, Dad. You just needed to see the truth." He nodded slowly, guilt flickering in his eyes. "We were wrong. About you. About everything." Mom wiped her tears. "Grace, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. We just wanted to protect who we thought needed it most." "I know," I said softly. "But I didn't need protection. I needed belief." The table was quiet after that, the kind of silence that carries more weight than words. And when I looked around my glowing home, surrounded by family that finally saw me, not the forgotten daughter, not the backup plan, I realized something. This wasn't revenge out of hate. It was revenge born from proof. Proof that I was more than their expectations. Proof that the quiet ones aren't weak, they're just planning. And as I watched Samantha's taillights disappear down the driveway, I couldn't help but smile. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval. They were chasing mine. It's been a year since that night. 1 year since I watched Samantha's golden world collapse. Not because I destroyed it, but because she built it on lies. People often ask if I regret it. If I regret exposing her. If I regret showing my parents who I truly was. The truth? Not for a second. Because revenge isn't always about destroying someone else. Sometimes it's about rebuilding yourself so completely that the people who doubted you can't recognize the person you've become. After that Thanksgiving disaster, Samantha's life unraveled fast. Her fiancé broke off the engagement within weeks. The hacker attempt became public among family friends, and she quietly moved to another city. Last I heard, she was working part-time, struggling to rebuild her image, still blaming me for her downfall. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. Hate keeps you chained to the past, and I'd had enough of that for a lifetime. Mom and Dad, on the other hand, went through a transformation of their own. It started small, Dad calling just to ask about my work, Mom sending thinking of you texts. Then one weekend, they visited my lake house. Mom stood by the glass wall, staring at the water shimmering under the sunset. "This place feels like peace," she whispered. I smiled. "It is." She turned to me, eyes soft, full of something I hadn't seen in years, pride. "Grace, I was so blind. I thought giving Samantha everything meant she'd become someone great. But I forgot you never needed things to become great." Dad nodded beside her. "We were unfair. You didn't just prove us wrong. You taught us something we should have known all along." It wasn't easy to forgive them, but in that moment I realized forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me. I wasn't the neglected daughter anymore. I was Grace Morgan, entrepreneur, investor, and self-made millionaire. Not by accident, not by luck, but by persistence. A few months later, I decided to fund a scholarship for underprivileged girls studying tech, named the Grace Initiative. The goal was simple: give smart, overlooked girls the chance I never got. When the local paper covered the story, Mom framed the article. It hung in their living room, right where Samantha's graduation photo used to be. That's when I knew I'd finally rewritten the family story, not through revenge, but through impact. One evening, as I watched the sunset paint the lake gold, I thought about how far I'd come. From the invisible daughter who ate leftovers while her sister vacationed in Paris, to the woman who could buy a villa there and still choose peace instead. It's funny how life comes full circle. Samantha once said I wasn't the type who owns things. She was right in a way, because the things I own now can't be bought. Self-worth, freedom, and the power to walk away. A few weeks ago, I got a message from Samantha. Just one line. "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "I hope you find peace too."
No anger. No sarcasm.
Just truth. Because real revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. It's success that speaks when you don't have to. Now, as I tell this story, I hope someone out there, maybe a forgotten sister, an overlooked son, a quiet dreamer, hears this and remembers. You don't need anyone's permission to rise. You don't need their approval to succeed. Just believe in yourself so fiercely that one day, they'll have no choice but to believe too. And when that day comes, you won't need to scream, "I told you so." Your life will say it for you. They gave her everything. But I built everything. That's my story.
I'm Grace Morgan.
And this was my revenge. If you felt Grace's story hit close to home, remember, success is the best revenge.
Gemstone.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Revenge Files for more real-life stories of karma, courage, and silent victories. Because sometimes the quiet ones write the loudest endings.